Okay, everybody. So hope you had a good lunch, and thanks again to the Embassy of Uzbekistan for hosting, this small feast for lunch. Let's continue now into our two afternoon panels, and continue with this festival of information on Central Asian energy. We're going to adjust course a little bit, although it's still part, of course, of the same overall discussion. And we will talk in this panel about the gas sector, about development of markets for trading in carbon and low carbon commodities. We're going to talk a little bit about infrastructure, and we're going to talk about some, gas also fired power plant projects in Central Asia. But we're also going to talk about hydro energy. And to start us off in that vein, in this discussion, I would now like to invite and offer the floor to Mr. Olim Azimov, who's kindly joined us online from Dushanbe, from Tajikistan. Olim Azimov is acting head of the International Department of Ministry of Energy and Water Resources of the Republic of Tajikistan. So, Mr. Azimov, I'd like you to address the conference and tell us a little bit about the strategy of the government for some of the projects in the hydro sector, but also more broadly about how you see renewables evolving in Tajikistan, as well as any other aspects that you'd like to tell the audience here. So the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, dear moderator, for providing the floor, and good evening, colleagues. I also kindly ask you that due to that in Tajikistan it's late evening, if you have all questions, I will kindly ask you to provide this question just after my presentations. So if we are speaking about the national strategy of Tajikistan for developing of energy, so that Tajikistan strategy until 2030 is we are standing on four 10 pillars. The first 10, it's like developing of our capacity until 10,000 megawatt. Another pillar is to diversification of our energy, because currently more than 94% of the electricity in Tajikistan produced by hydro. Another 10%, which we are saying about the export of the electricity until 10 billion kilowatt hours. And the last 10, it is decreasing the losses in the Tajik system. So back to the hydro. So as I mentioned, that more than 94% in Tajikistan is generated by hydroelectricity. And the government of Tajikistan is still developing and willing to developing this the main resource for electricity from this source, from hydro, and that's why we are developing another hydro stations. And currently in Tajikistan we are building 2 new hydro stations. It's Rogan hydropower station, as well as together with Uzbekistan. There is a new project which is showing cross-border cooperation between the Central Asian countries. There is a new hydropower station which is agreed to build between Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. It's by Tauz Hydro, which will be in the Zarafshan River, and it's two hydro stations which will be in territory of Tajikistan, but mainly will operate for Uzbekistan. So when we are speaking again about the cross-border cooperation, especially in Central Asian region, currently Tajikistan planning until 2024 back to the Central Asian power system, which connecting 4 countries. It's Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. So it provides these countries more flexibility for developing other resources. For example, if we are speaking about the renewables, if we are speaking in the renewable for the solar in Kazakhstan or in Uzbekistan, so it will be providing them possibility use balancing and regulation via big hydros, which situated in Kyrgyzstan and in Tajikistan. As well as if Tajikistan also now currently part of the project, which is called CASA 1000 projects, which connecting Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. It's on the final stage of the constructions. It's also providing to decrease using from the fossil fuels in Afghanistan and Pakistan, because when the electricity will be exported from Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan to Pakistan, they will eliminate using of the coal, using of the which currently now using in Pakistan, as well as to decrease using of the diesel electricity in Afghanistan and Mazut. Also, this is if we are speaking about the strategy of the developing of the export electricity from Tajikistan. But I mean, currently Tajikistan exporting about 3 billion kilowatt hours, mainly to Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. And when the CASA 1000 project will be in place, so the export of electricity can be reached the 10 billion kilowatt hours as it stressed in national strategy of Tajikistan. And back to the third 10, which we mentioned about the diversifications, because yes, we are using the hydro as a main resource, but we're also thinking to diversificate the production of the electricity. In these regards, we are now currently developing the solar electricity in the Suk region, as well as we are thinking to develop the wind and the electricity, but it's again on the basic stage, and also then other projects which currently on the public debate, but it's still not cleared yet. It's a new TPP on the gas sector. So briefly, this is the current situation in the Tajik energy system. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Olim, Azimov, and excellent connection. I just wanted to know that despite we can't see you, we can hear you extremely well. There's a lot of people in the room. I'm just going to, do a little bit things a bit differently as a moderator. Does anyone have any questions that they would actually like to address to our speaker from Tajikistan, given the excellent connection, sort of at this point, just before we continue on to the next sort of panel? If anyone wants to raise any issues with Tajikistan, welcome. Mike, please, Jan. Maybe it would. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Interesting to know when the new infrastructure that links the different stands will become operational, because this is really part of the solution to have common infrastructure and cross-border management, capacity management for that common infrastructure.
And just to build on that question from Jan Haizmann, and as mentioned by Nurlan Kupianov earlier, are you looking at Tajikistan at any kind of regional, let's say, system integration model from other regions of the world? I think Nurlan mentioned Nord Pool. I know there's been a little bit of study of the Scandinavian, let's say, model in the context of ECHO, the member states of ECHO. It's an international organization covering the Central Asian countries working on economic cooperation. So is there any benchmarks that you're studying internationally? Please.
So first of all, if we are saying about the, let's say, Central Asian power system, I guess it's already have own history and own tradition, which is long tradition of the regional cooperation with the electricity. It's the electricity system exists from Soviet Union. So here we already have own experience and own principle of the working. And if we honestly, although this is more technical question, but I guess that another models which exist in, let's say in Europe or let's say in another part of the world, for the it will be difficult to adopt for the Central Asian power system, because we have like emergency system which is quite different from what using in the world. And when some new, let's say even station will be joining to this network, it is a lot of work we have to do for correlation of this cooperation, if we are speaking about the technical aspects. For example, Tajikistan, who was like disconnecting from CAP system already for 14 years, we are now spending more than 40 million just to come back to the Central Asian power system. So it's a lot of efforts and a lot of stuff we have to do. Although this finance and this resource not going for the new station, is just to them to make the concrete models, to make some to buy some relay protection stuff. And even in this stage, it is this equipment and itself, it's about 40 million. So it shows how it's really difficult and some specifications in the centralized power system, because this system is working in synchronized. But back to other world experience, we are probably, it's better to say about the CASA 1000 projects, which connecting Central Asian and South Asia via DC line, with a converter station. It's the technology is more expensive and more complicated, but it's provided ability for the Central Asian and to South and South Asian not working in synchronized way. So it's provide the possibility to them working in the separate to operate in the separate system, as well as when we are talking about the providing electricity. For example, let's say back to Afghanistan. Afghanistan accepting energy from at least 4 countries, from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Iran. And Pakistan also planning to provide electricity to Afghanistan. But all of this energy coming to Afghanistan, they're coming on the dead end. So then they even cannot synchronize within own country this electricity they're importing from these 4 countries. So in this regard, in technical point of view, it's quite complicated in this region, and as well as another issue that again, CAP system, they have own tradition and own long tradition of the working. Thanks.
Okay, so if no further questions to Tajikistan, I suggest we move on to our next speaker on the panel and in-person speaker. So I'm going to speak in Russian now, everybody. So if if you want to get some headsets, or if you want to have a crash course on Russian, now is the good time to do it. И как я сказал, я сейчас перейду на русский язык, Игорь, потому что я хочу... Вы можете здесь или оттуда, как вам удобно. Я думаю, здесь нормально. Здесь удобно, просто микрофон возьмете, когда начнете выступать. Да, так я перехожу на русский язык, потому что я имею большую честь пригласить присоединиться к нашему панели господина Згурова, Игорь Згуров. Игорь, я бы сказал, один из самых опытных людей, с которым я лично знакомый в качестве работы в газовой промышленности в Центральной Азии, особенно в Туркменистане и в Узбекистане. Опыт работы превышает больше 20 лет. Игорь начал свою карьеру в финансовом секторе на Украине, как я понимаю, потом зашел в газовый бизнес, и он председатель нескольких компаний, которые занимаются торговлей газа, добычей нефти, также само Vema в Швейцарии, и также Югнефтьгаз. Так, Игорь, я хочу вас спросить несколько вопросов, и, может, мы в таком формате с вами пообщаемся для наших слушателей. Первое, я хотел вас спросить, как вы на протяжении этих 20 плюс лет вашего опыта работать с Туркменистаном, например, для начала, как вы видите вот эволюцию газовой промышленности Туркменистана? Она изменилась, она является также основой экономики Туркменистана, как она была раньше, или общее как-то направление сектора и компании, как ваша, которая работает в секторе совместно с туркменскими и другими международными компаниями, как-то создают новые как-то тренды в газовой индустрии. Давайте начнем с этого.
Ну, спасибо большое за такое представление. Смотрите, и спасибо за приглашение на конференцию. Ну, как минимум, мы уже много чего узнали за это короткое время. Смотрите, честно, я не считаю себя, ну, как бы специалистом в Туркменистане, и вот хотел бы, наверное, в нефти и газе мы что-то понимаем. Если говорить вот с точки зрения выбросов метана, да, тот же самый Туркменистан и страны Центральной Азии прошли путь за эти 20 лет, и, как ни странно, я берусь утверждать, что они уже частично сократили эти выбросы. Страны стали добывать больше, но поменялась технология. Действительно, сам выброс метана, он зависит напрямую от той технологии, которая используется на том или ином месторождении, да. И применение современных технологий, оно сокращает эти выбросы. Оно повышает эффективность производства. Чем больше частного сектора находится в управлении этими активами, да, тем больше ну, частного сектора заточено на то, чтобы заработать деньги, получить больше капитализацию для рынка акций, для своих акционеров. Ну и, соответственно, это приводит к тому, что меняется производство. Ну, если ответить.
А как вы смотрите на рынок с точки зрения его структуры? Вот он, как я понимаю, доминирован национальными игроками, но с другой точки зрения компании, как ваша, это, может быть, не глобальная компания, но так же самое вы достаточно успешно работаете в стране. Модель вот развития рынка, вы видите, что она будет вот так продолжаться, или Туркменистан, вы видите какие-то возможности, чтобы вступили более крупные, давайте скажем, upstream companies?
Давайте тогда два слова скажу про те компании, которые я представляю, которые работают сегодня на рынке Центральной Азии. Одна компания – это Юхнефтегаз, ВНЖ, компания, которая работает почти 20 лет на территории Туркменистана. У нас 3 клиента, один Туркменнефть, Туркменгаз и Туркменгеология. Компания умеет делать полный цикл. Также компания работает в Азербайджане и Тунисе. Компания умеет делать полный цикл сервиса в нефтегазовой отрасли от геологоразведки, сейсмики, бурения и интенсификация добычи. Вторая компания, как результаты компания помогает Туркменнефти добывать 10% ее баланса. Причем наши отношения с клиентами строятся по принципу мы получаем за свои услуги не продукцию, мы получаем не деньги, а продукцию, извините. То есть мы сразу проводим линию, и если мы сработали, улучшили, добычу улучшили, то, соответственно, мы что-то заработали. То есть риски мы берем на себя. А второе наше направление – это компания Vema. Это швейцарская компания, которая с 2005 года в рынке карбона, в рынке офсетов, карбоновой тематики. Мы реализовали 75 проектов в разных странах во времена работы Киотского протокола. Зарегистрировали 150 миллионов успешных сокращений выбросов в эквиваленте тонн СО2. Наши проекты дали сокращение порядка 3 миллиардов метров кубических газа, то бишь метана, о котором все говорят. На сегодняшний день мы реализуем 12 проектов в этой в рамках Парижского соглашения. Из них 4 проекта мы реализуем уже в Центральной Азии. Мы работаем в Узбекистане. Мы начинаем работать в Казахстане, и мы работаем в Тунисе по этой тематике. Надо сказать, что то, что вы спрашиваете, то есть вот сегодняшний мир декарбонизации, он имеет серьезное влияние на отрасль. Почему? Потому что любая система декарбонизации, она требует инвестиций. Соответственно, для частного сектора это значимый вызов, то есть вызов для того, чтобы соответствовать новым правилам. Это же вызов, кстати, для отраслей нефтегазовых в Центральной Азии. Надо сказать, что нефтегазовая отрасль, химическая отрасль, она имеет такой значимую составляющую для стран Центральной Азии, особенно для Казахстана, Узбекистана и Туркменистана. И первое, то есть надо тратить больше денег, чтобы добыть тонну продукции. Второе, в долгосрочной перспективе все понимают, что зеленая энергетика – это вызов добывающим отраслям с невозобновляемыми источниками энергии на то, что их продукцию будут покупать меньше. И в этих условиях, в этих странах надо принимать решения руководителям этих отраслей. А на самом деле в секторе работают сотни тысяч людей. То есть в одном Туркменистане только сотни тысяч людей, в Узбекистане. И это усложняет процесс. С другой стороны, если мы реализуем такой большой, серьезный проект, то мы ждем возврата инвестиций от продажи продукции. А продажа продукции связана, опять-таки, если мы идем на внутренний рынок, то на внутреннем рынке, особенно в Казахстане, в Узбекистане, существенно влияют социальные цены на эти продукты. То есть, соответственно, опять мы имеем ограничения. Но, опять-таки, это все является, как мы говорим, любой минус надо перечеркивать на плюс. То есть любой вызов, надо смотреть в нем возможность к росту и находить возможности выходить. Я вообще привел презентацию, честно, и, может, проще будет, чтобы вы включили.
У вас презентация у нашего...
А мы отдали.
А вы отдали? Хорошо, я тогда... Leo, do you have Igor's presentation there? Can you, if possible, display it on the screen briefly before we go to our next speakers online? And good to see Roxana and Pierre-Paul in Brussels and Uzbekistan, respectively. Welcome. Пожалуйста, Игорь, продолжайте.
Почему выбросы метана – это важно с точки зрения декарбонизации? Коэффициент, как вы знаете, коэффициент, который присвоен в эквиваленте СО2, он 25, иногда он бывает 28 в разных методиках. То есть считается, что метан в 28 раз, в 25 раз больше влияет на сокращение озонового слоя, чем СО2. 1 тонна метана влияет в 25 раз, в 28 раз больше. Это отрасли, в которых мы работаем. Если можно, следующий слайд. Я бы хотел поделиться нашим опытом, как мы работаем в проектах, когда реализуем проект сокращения выброса метана. Первое, надо сначала понять, а что это такое, то есть с чем мы боремся. Вот здесь на этом видео изображены, мы взяли сейчас локус только месторождения. Это те выбросы метана, которые мы зафиксировали в наших работах, которые проводим на сегодняшний день. Это отснята специальная техника, которая делает съемки в 3 форматах. Один обычный формат, второй формат – это тепловизор, и третий – это инфракрасное излучение. Спектральный анализ. Причем, что важно сказать, что все то, что вы видите, это технологические выбросы. Это не какое-то разгильдяйство на месторождение. То есть Вот если вы видите резервуар, с которого вот парит газ, который вот виден, это так устроена технология. Из скважины идет флюид, он попадает в систему сепарации. После системы сепарации он заходит в танк. В танке он имеет какое-то давление, на нем стоят клапана, которые называются дыхательные, из которых парит газ. Ну, в общем-то, первый этап – это мы проводим такие исследования на месторождениях и находим эти места, в которых происходят выбросы метана. Здесь показано оборудование, которое мы используем, когда ищем выбросы метана. Первое – это непосредственно вот та камера. Хочу обратить внимание, что все оборудование, которое мы используем, это то оборудование, которое рекомендовано международными методологиями, которое в последующем, которое мы используем для регистрации результатов этих проектов, для регистрации сокращения выбросов. Это методологии CDM, методологии, в общем, основная базовая методология CDM. Сейчас вернусь. С правой стороны вы видите дрон с камерой, рядом машина, чуть ниже машина, на которой есть оборудование, которое делает одновременно, то есть в единицу времени посылает много сигналов, которые идентифицируют сам выброс метана. С левой стороны такой прибор, он называется сэмплер. После того, как вы определили сам выброс метана, то есть место, где это происходит, да, на камеру FLIR, то после этого вы должны понять, а сколько же литров этого метана из этой дырочки, из этого сечения выходит в воздух. И второе, сколько в этой утечке содержания самого метана, что делает непосредственно это оборудование. Ну и следующее, здесь показано, что мы делаем это все по международным методологиям, собираем в реестры те, которые утверждены этими методологиями. Ну, дальше здесь представлен анализ. После этого мы начинаем рассуждать, а почему, то есть этот метан выбрасывается. И основной наш вывод – это действительно как раз та технология, которая используется на том или другом месторождении. Основными причинами мы на сегодняшний день считаем, что это возраст оборудования, то, которое используется. Второе – это качество попутного нефтяного газа, который мы имеем на месторождении. Почему? Потому что даже после того, как вы этот газ собрали, вам его надо куда-то передать. Но для того, чтобы его передать, если довести его до рынка, его надо сначала очистить. Очистка газа, оказывается, стоит гораздо дороже, чем непосредственно процедура его собирания. Ну и следующее – это сама система транспортировки этого газа. Ну и понятно, что важным фактором является доступ к финансированию для реализации этого проекта. После этого мы ищем технические решения. Я, наверное, не буду особо останавливаться на этом, но все эти технологические решения мы умеем применять в жизнь и применяем в жизнь для того, чтобы то, что мы собрали, очистить и доставить к потребителю, то бишь, соответственно, монетизировать. На этом слайде говорится о технических решениях, которые используются для распределительных сетей, потому что у нас есть опыт также реализации проектов на распределительных сетях. Здесь изложен цикл реализации, как мы называем, экологического проекта. То, что мы умеем делать и делаем. После того, как мы выбрали техническое решение, мы формируем так называемую экономическую модель. Мы находим источник погашения той инвестиции, которую мы произвели. Ну и дальше непосредственно этап, мы договариваемся с нашим заказчиком, и последующее это уже техническая реализация этого решения с последующей монетизацией. Мы считаем, что есть два типа проектов. Один тип проектов – это когда мы сокращаем выброс метана, выброс парникового газа. Их мы делим на три типа. Первый тип – это на три типа по источнику возврата инвестиций. Один тип – это когда зарегистрированный офсет позволяет полностью вернуть инвестицию. То бишь, когда мы зарегистрированные карбоновые единицы, возвращаем нашу инвестицию. Второй тип – это когда дополнительная новая товарная продукция позволяет закрыть нашу инвестицию, погасить инвестицию. И третий тип – это смешанный, когда мы рассматриваем два товара. А второй тип – это когда мы реализуем проекты как раз либо зеленая энергетика, либо получение голубого или зеленого продукта. В этом случае есть, опять-таки, три типа возмещения. Один тип – это надбавка от рынка за тот товар, который имеет зеленые или голубые свойства, либо налоговая льгота при завозе этого товара на тот рынок, на который мы его везем. В своей деятельности мы активно используем систему регистрации офсетов для возврата инвестиций, как дополнительного источника возврата инвестиций. На этом слайде мы говорим, что мы можем сделать для сотрудничества, для сокращения выбросов метана с тем, с кем мы предположительно будем сотрудничать. Первое, мы умеем находить выбросы парниковых газов, в том числе метана. Второе, мы умеем разрабатывать технологические решения. Третье, мы умеем эти решения претворять в жизнь. И четвертое, мы умеем продавать эту продукцию и, так сказать, доводить начатое до конца. На этом слайде мы попробовали изложить некоторые вопросы, вызовы, которые существуют с нашей точки зрения для проектов по декарбонизации в странах Центральной Азии. Я уже пытался говорить о двух социальных факторах. Один фактор в том, что если мы говорим о нефтегазовой отрасли, химической отрасли, то в этой отрасли работает большое количество людей, и любые, сокращения в этой отрасли или там попытки ее жестко регулировать, ограничивать, да, мы должны всегда учитывать, что эти люди на сегодняшний день получают там работу. Второй фактор, что энергетический ресурс в Центральной Азии, использованный гражданами, там пропан, бутан, бензин, который заливается в бак, он стоит сегодня, да, не таких денег, как в Европе, и невозможно поднять его цену. Это тот социальный фактор ограничения этих цен, которые надо учитывать при реализации этих проектов. Третий фактор – это, больше касается зеленого голубого вида топлива. Мы очень хотим производить голубой аммиак. Мы считаем, что в регионе прекрасная сырьевая база для него, но вопрос тот, который есть, это, мы его добудем, он будет стоить дороже. А куда его везти? Самое главное, как его везти. Даже мы, может быть, знаем, куда. Мы торгуем аммиаком, мы понимаем, да. То есть на сегодняшний день транспортные коридоры, которые существуют, их надо делать. И мы все понимаем, что, к сожалению, Центральная Азия находится в таком месте, на сегодняшний день очень сильно зависит от стабильности в той же самой Грузии, Было бы очень хорошо, если бы развивался коридор в сторону Персидского залива. Но мы все понимаем, что это вопрос, который требует решения какого-то окна в тех санкциях, которые существуют к Ирану. Я извиняюсь, что я попытаюсь сбиться. Этот слайд уже больше о нас. Это кто мы, компания ВНЖ, компания Vema Carbon. Что мы умеем в климате? Мы умеем делать консалтинг, мы умеем осуществлять проектный подход, реализовывать проекты. Третье – это мы умеем обучать, потому что все наши проекты в последующем предусматривают обучение того персонала, который эксплуатирует то, что было произведено. И четвертое, мы умеем торговать. Торговать уже офсетами, которые сгенерили, торговать той товарной продукцией, которую произвели. У нас есть команда людей, которые умеют все это делать и делать. У нас есть оборудование. На сегодняшний день в Центральной Азии наши компании постоянно работает 1500 человек. В двух компаниях постоянно работает 1500 человек. В Туркменистане на месторождении работает 1200 человек. Это те результаты, которых мы достигли за то время проектной деятельности, которую ведем. Что еще можно сказать? Важно сказать, что, наверное, выбросы метана для Центральной Азии, почему это еще важно? Потому что по данным Международного энергетического агентства, у Казахстана выбросы составляют 3 миллиарда 800 миллионов метров кубических, у Узбекистана миллиард, у Туркменистана 6 миллиардов. Мы не говорим, это плохо или хорошо, мы можем оценивать сегодня это по-разному. Мы считаем, что это большая возможность этих стран, если они смогут вернуть это в свой производственный цикл, в свой хозяйственный цикл. Спасибо большое, спасибо за терпение. Извините, что так долго.
Игорь, нет, большое вам, на самом деле, большое спасибо вам, потому что, коллеги, я уверен, вы со мной согласитесь, что вот мы имеем здесь великолепное такое, как сказать, такой инсайт, да, как-то взгляд, как на самом деле игроки на рынке в странах, как Туркменистан, занимаются добычей углеводородного сырья, потом какие они применяют технологические способы, чтобы работать в процессе декарбонизации, в этом смысле, как они предпринимательно создают механизмы для дальнейшей торговли таких продуктов и монетизировать, потому что как-никак, если компания работает порядка 20 лет уже на рынке, как Туркменистан, это непростое дело, и здесь тоже нужно учитывать опыт настоящей работы. Так я сожалею, что нам панель только дает краткая как-то возможность познакомиться с вашей работой, и на самом деле каждая из презентаций здесь на этой конференции сама тема конференции своим по собой. Так, Игорь, очень вас благодарю. И, коллеги, пожалуйста, обращайтесь к Игорю в течение networking, coffee break, фуршет после конференции, чтобы понять более подробно. Все эти материалы будут доступны для всех участников конференции. И сейчас я перейду. I'm now going to go back to English. And Leo, if you can take down Igor's excellent presentation. Yes, and now if we can rejoin with our colleagues online, and I'm now going to invite Mr. Pierre-Paul Antheunissens, who I have great pleasure with inviting here into this discussion. Interestingly enough, Pierre-Paul is actually Belgian, and he's joining us from Tashkent, I believe, or perhaps Sirdarya. Pierre-Paul, you can correct me. It's fantastic to see you here. We just saw each other in Brussels and also in Tashkent about a month ago, and I think we're going to see each other in Tashkent in about a week's time. So I'm actually visiting Uzbekistan next week. So Pierre-Paul, great to see you. You're, of course, a man of very substantial experience, not just in your current capacity as the EDF, the French power sector giant, national player, country representative and director in Uzbekistan, but also having worked in the European Commission for quite some time in Central Asia. In fact, I believe you first arrived in Central Asia even before me. I was in 1997 and you in 1996. I think between us, we have more than 50 years experience with the region. So it's fantastic to see you. But on the substance side of our meeting, I really want to congratulate you as the country director of EDF and your company for winning this very substantial 1,600 megawatt Sirdarya sort of tender for this, very substantial power sector investment, which EDF has committed to Uzbekistan. Pierre-Paul, the honeymoon is over. You've signed all the documents. The marriage is beginning. So how do you see this developing? How do you rate the support and commitment of the public partner in this project, of the government of Uzbekistan? What areas of improvement could you see? Could you give us some initial thoughts on that? Thank you. Welcome, please.
Thank you, Marat, and good afternoon, everyone. I missed the Uzbek lunch in Brussels, but and I'm a little bit jealous. But anyway, here it's time of aperitif very soon. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Very good. So, Marat, thank you for the introduction. I'm Pierre-Paul, Antheunissens. I'm the director of EDF Central Asia. So EDF established a subsidiary in Tashkent recently. That was in last November. And now we have a full subsidiary to cover the 5 countries of Central Asia. Marat, you referred to this CCGT project in Sirdarya. We are very, very proud of this project. That's the flagship project of EDF in Central Asia. The very first one, but definitely not the last one. Yeah, it's okay? I will try to be closer to the mic also. So on this project, it's a financing. It was a IFC tender. We are happy that we won it, and I want to mention also that we are not alone. We are with Japanese partners and some Qatari partner. And we are really, the honeymoon is a little bit over, but not completely. We just have intensive discussion with the government to finalize to get all the documents to have the financial closing very, very soon. Today, that's a good news. We got the presidential decree. So this is a big issue which is solved. So we are very, very confident. But just since we are in a panel on gas and hydro, let me also say a few words on hydro, because besides this CCGT, we are developing 2 hydro projects in Uzbekistan, in Mulalak and Khojikent. We'll make a commercial proposal by the end of this year, and we hope to be awarded these 2 projects and to start building relatively soon. One participant from Kazakhstan mentioned also regional cooperation. This is for us extremely key. So we would like to emphasize the efforts we do to discuss with the Kyrgyz authorities to develop some hydro infrastructure project in the Kyrgyz Republic to benefit the Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. So we really believe in the future of regional cooperation in the field of energy. And also a last word on solar. We are quite shy on solar at the moment because our colleagues of EDF Renewables are too busy in Europe, but we hope to motivate them. But hopefully we started a small project in Tashkent that's called a rooftop project, where we equip industrial roofs with solar panels, and more importantly, we develop the process and the regulatory framework to replicate this to all industrial roofs. Marat, I will stop here, and I'm ready to answer any question.
Well, don't wait long, because I've got one right now for you. So, and you missed a fantastic plov, by the way, here for lunch. So I apologize for that. But question, I just want to ask you one, and then maybe I'll give a chance to the floor as well. Okay, so what about finance for this project? I mean, this is 1,600 megawatts. This must be, I don't know, in excess of 1 billion euros, I would say, something like that.
It is.
So is this, I mean, you may have followed the previous panel when we had the IFIs, EIB, EBRD, these sort of incumbent financial players. How have you been working to secure financing for this project? Is it still a work in progress? Have you secured finance? Can you maybe brief us a little bit on that? And you mentioned also Japanese partners, so please.
Yeah, finance is so far not a major issue for us. At the moment, we can find most of the financing. So we have a very close relation with IFC at the point that on the next hydro project that we prepare, IFC requested to work with us, not as a lender, but as a co-investor. So they would like to be with us on these hydro projects. We tested also on Kambarata in Kyrgyzstan. That's a major project. It's not 1 billion. We're close to between 4 and 5 billion. And we believe that we can let's say, close the financial side relatively easy. We have a lot of countries and companies and private financing organization ready to support us in this sector. I think when you say green energy, to be very frank with you, gas, to find financing for new gas project will be an issue. But to find financing for new hydro or let's say renewable solar, it's not an issue at all. I think that money is pouring on that.
And just briefly, what about a word on timeline on project development and how within the context of this timeline you see the project having an impact on the energy balance of Uzbekistan? Does it take the country further down the road? We had Aziz Hamidov from the government talk earlier this morning, but does it take the country further down the road of its targeted energy mixed diversification portfolio?
Yeah. If I take the case of Uzbekistan, I think that the right decisions have been taken, but it will take some time to implement them. We know the huge effort made to develop renewables, wind and solar, but currently you have 200 megawatt operating in Uzbekistan. The rest will come maybe this year, but probably next year and in the coming years. For example, Sirdarya, we have a commercial operation date by March 2026. So now we start building, but it will take 2.5 years to close to build the new power plant. So I think that's one of your speakers mentioned about the crucial importance of the grid, and I think that's very key, not only in Uzbekistan but in all the countries of the region. It's really to invest massively in the grid, because in Uzbekistan, if all these renewable plants will start running, to be frank, the system will explode. So it's really time to invest also in the energy transmission, and this is really very important. Last word, I think IFIs are very aware of that. We are waiting for the master plan from World Bank on energy generation, but energy transmission, and I think that will help the government to make develop the right strategy.
Pierre-Paul, that's a brilliant intervention. Really, thank you very much for that. And
my pleasure.
I think you've already answered the 5 or 10 other questions I have in front. We can discuss over drinks in Tashkent maybe in a week's time. But I can see that EDF is really, as we would say with kind of Australian English euphemism, having a strong bet on Uzbekistan. It seems you're really betting on Uzbekistan.
Well, definitely, Uzbekistan is a strategic country for EDF, because that's here that we won our first big project in the region, but also we have a bet on the whole region. We believe in Kyrgyzstan, in Tajikistan, in the hydro potential of these two countries, and also in Kazakhstan. And I'm sure, we believe in regional cooperation, including the 5 stands. So that's really something which is very close to our heart. That's what I always say. If we are strong in France, but this winter, last winter, we had to import electricity from our European neighbors. So we always need good neighbors.
And so did some of the Central Asian neighbors. So I think there's a bit of a tit for tat experience here. Pierre-Paul, fantastic to see you. Thank you very much for your contribution. And if you have time, please stay online for some minutes because we have one or two really good presentations to add to your excellent intervention. And speaking of one or two excellent presentations to add, I'd like to invite now a fellow colleague in the room here, Dr. Jan Haizmann. Dr. Jan Haizmann is advisory board member of the Brussels Energy Club. We have an advisory board with the club, which directs our annual program of work. But I think Jan is known quite well in Brussels, and I think maybe will be known well in the future in Central Asia. At least that's my objective. And in some other parts of the world connecting with Central Asia. But Jan has been instrumental in the foundation and development of a Brussels-based structure called the European Federation of Energy Traders, EFET. EFET is very well known. It's a functional association here with more than not just 20 years experience, but over 100 companies of the big companies, in fact, like EDF and like many of the companies that are GIE members, Roxana will speak next, a part of the association. And EFET has really done a great amount of work on developing markets for trading energy carriers. And Jan, as a thought leader in that sector, is now transcending some of that template from the EFET model to other regions of the world, which are in the process of decarbonizing, like Central Asia, like the MENA region, like the Gulf region. There is an initiative Jan is leading at the moment called ZETA, Zero Emissions Traders Alliance, which we hope to see inaugurating very near future in Abu Dhabi. So Jan, I'd like to invite you now to say a few words. Tell us a little bit about your work with EFET. Tell us a little bit about how you see this being transposed into the MENA Central Asia context, bearing in mind that, companies like, Aqua Power of Saudi Arabia, a number of other companies, Masdar, Mubadala from the Emirates, are very active in Central Asia. It's not only EDF that's taking a bet on the region, but our friends from the Gulf are a step ahead of the game. So Jan Haizmann, please, the floor is yours.
A lot of lessons that we can actually learn from the European experience. Creating markets have propelled a lot of benefits to everyone that is involved in them. And this can equally be transferred to the carbon neutral concepts, decarbonization of the economy. So in reality, there is a lot of things that can be transferred, at least conceptually. And I have also prepared a couple of slides. We will just bring them up. I'm here, it's a little bit of a historic moment for me, but also for ZETA, the Zero Emissions Trading Alliance, because it's the first ever time that this organization is going external. It was only set up in reality 6 weeks ago in the Netherlands as a non-for-profit foundation, but it will become very likely a main carrier of conceptual design for decarbonized economy and decarbonized trading. So, don't know how that, which direction do I need to point at? To you? All right. Okay, this is what it is. It's a non-profit foundation designated to create transparent market design. And this is, for example, something we know very well now from the power and gas sectors in Europe. For liquid, no-emission traded markets in the MENA region. This is at least the initial area of activity will be in the MENA region, but it doesn't mean that we stop in Central Asia. It can equally apply there. The foundation was registered, I think 6 weeks ago, I took the role of General Secretary of this organization. And what we're going to do is a little bit summarized here. Basically reducing emissions along the value chain, lowest cost of production for affordable supply of end consumers, whilst guaranteeing security of supply. And this requires a high degree of standardization and a high degree of transparency in order to create liquidity for trading. Trading means buying and selling. It means buying and selling, not only buying and selling of the commodities such as power and gas, but equally buying and selling of virtual commodities in terms of certificates. And it requires a fair price discovery mechanisms for these greenhouse gases, notably price discovery for carbon. And it allows through this also a way to finance sustainable projects along the chain. This is how it works. It looks a little bit here like a simplified image of a heating system. And actually, it is a little bit of a heating system because our planet heats up. And by trading, we believe that we can actually contribute to accelerate the decarbonization of the industry, simply by allowing the separate trade of a green certificate that evidences the quality of the commodity from the commodity itself. So basically making it separate, a transaction over the commodity, on the commodity, and a transaction on the certificate. And this is what is ultimately shown here. It is a world that consists of two sides that can be either operated jointly or operated separately. And this is, in the virtual world, is where it adds most of the benefit, notably in systems that are congested like the systems in Central Asia. We just heard it this morning that there is little interconnection, there is congestion at borders, there is insular organization of grids, and this is where the virtual world can provide solutions tomorrow, not only in 15 or 20 years when these grids will be finally be built. So looking at the compliance markets, there are two compliance markets that are similar, but at the same time, they are also different. One is the compliance market as we have it here in the EU, the EU ETS regime, which is the statutory compliance markets producing or enabling permits that allow then entities to emit a certain amount of carbon dioxide and get therefore a certificate. And this ton of carbon then gets also a price. And then there is, different from the statutory or compliance system, the voluntary market that in reality relies on company initiatives. It relies on company taking the initiative to reduce carbon according to a plan that is verified by a third party. So this is something that is done not by states, but by companies. What a state would need to do in this context is allowing companies to do so. Because I think some of the problems in Central Asia, because we're here discussing Central Asia, may be that the states are financially not able to set up systems that allow for a compliance model following the ETS regime. It may also be that our colleague from Wind Europe suggested feed-in tariffs, that the consumers in Central Asia are not able to pay the power price that is required for a feed-in tariff system. Because these systems traditionally have been very successful in Europe with consumers that have deep pockets. So looking at the system features, it is important to underline the need of credit integrity. That means measurable reduction of carbon neutral, of carbon. It needs to be permanent and additional, and it independently verified. So obviously there needs to be a system of accounting standards that are verified through a third party to make the system credible and allow it only for use once. So it needs to be unique, not twice or 3 times or 4 times for the same reduction. Yeah, and this is what would be needed. It is actually very simple. You need to have a market confidence, and that means transparency, transparency, transparency. Through transparency, you create confidence. And you need new players that then come to join a transparent system. A system that could be like a clean energy hub, for example, where you have various companies that contribute to this project for different reasons. Some of the companies may just produce a lot of hydrogen, for example, taking hydrogen as an example. Some other companies may be interested in buying hydrogen. Some other companies may be interested in the certificates. They are compliance buyers. They are buying into this, becoming partners in the clean energy hub because they want to greenify their energy portfolio. Or there may be companies that just store these certificates. So in reality, there is a mix of players that makes a hub. And in that mix of players, there are different motives for becoming active in a clean energy hub. It does not require always the state to do it. It does not always require taxes to do it. You can do it with the means of the market, where companies see benefits in these reduction units and are entering the game and help financing these projects. This leads to, if it is done well, to liquidity and to a choice of products. That means also a choice in terms of hedging. If you are a producer of hydrogen, for example, a large producer that has years of hydrogen basically ahead of him because of production sites being running, he must be interested in hedging the price risks for this hydrogen. He needs to know when he sells that hydrogen to a party, maybe for 10 years, what the price will be in 10 years. So he will be interested in finding a hedge for that price, as will maybe the buyer that buys that hydrogen from him. So a clean energy hub could provide for these hedges. And what it also requires, and this is the last point here in this cycle, is standard products and standard contracts, standard certificates, standard certification. So all of that needs to be standardized in order to make it work. And there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. Now, this is, I think, the last slide, or the almost last one. It shows you a little bit how it would work. You have a registry that adopts certain standards and has its own registry policy. Then there is a project that, again, is according to the same standards, managed by an accredited verifier. So obviously there needs to be someone that then verifies. We have had Igor here. He would be, for example, be working on a project to capture methane off the well. So then you would need to have an accredited verifier who then verifies the success of Igor's work in capturing the methane and delivering it to the consumer. And then you have an investor that actually finances it. Well, and how does it all sit together? It sits together then with a corporate buyer. The corporate buyer buys certificates that add value to him because he needs to justify that his electricity portfolio, maybe in the US or somewhere else around the world, is green. And he does this with help of these certificates that are produced with help of Igor's work in capturing the methane. This is how all sits together, and it doesn't require infrastructure. It requires a system that you can create on paper, but it needs to be verified. It needs to be according to the standards that are applying for these type of projects. And currently we have a mixed salad, une salade mixte in French, or in terms of standards that exist for these type of compliance projects. Now, what does it mean? It means in reality, and this is also a little bit looking at Central Asia, what is important, other people have seen it already, is grid infrastructure. Very important. You've heard it several times this morning. That basically also verifies that it is really necessary. Work on cross-border interconnection. Work on way how to manage that interconnection, how to manage congestion at the interconnection. Create a regulatory framework that provides for transparency and also gives some security in terms of investment, because you want to attract an investment into your countries. And obviously then create an efficient and transparent mechanism to use the infrastructure. That means third-party access, giving people access to use the grid. Not only one company, but maybe 50 can be shippers on the grid. And establish platforms, meaning platforms in terms of regional platforms, not national platforms, because the countries in Central Asia are too small to arrange for effective market emergence in the sense that we are discussing here. What would be required is not a platform for Turkmenistan. What would be required is a platform for the 5 stans, for example. And this would basically also enable the 5 stans to become more independent from big neighbors that sell, for example, balancing energy to one of the stans, as we've heard today. This is then not longer necessary because you're interconnected and can provide balancing services to each other. So this is a little bit the message also from a CETA point of view. Achieving net zero is a goal that is only achievable, I think, together. And this is maybe the essential last message from me. Thank you for your attention.
Jan Haizmann, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I think in this conference, you're getting, well, in this panel, in fact, a very good picture into what is happening now in countries like Turkmenistan when it comes to, decarbonization, carbon capture, methane emissions, sort of leakage reductions. But we're also getting a picture of what the future could be like. And what Jan Haizmann has done is actually given us a glimpse into the future. So we've talked a lot about regional cooperation. A lot of us in Brussels look at this in conventional, supply-demand terms, regional cooperation, yeah? Linking grids, making sure there's no blackouts, just making sure that security of supply sort of works effectively. But what Jan is giving us an insight into is what the future could like and what regional cooperation could like at the level of trading, energy commodities and trading energy carriers, and how it can look as a template which has already been developed in Europe, in other regions of the world. So Jan, thank you very much for that. I think that was very, very valuable. Now, Leo, if we could bring back online our online speakers, and now, well, we've had one kind of Secretary General or Director General, Jan, and now we go to a Deputy Secretary General, in fact, Roxana Caliminte. It's a pleasure to see you online. And you are, of course, the Deputy Secretary General of GIE. GIE, some of you will know, some of you may not know, it's Gas Infrastructure Europe. It's really part of the Brussels energy ecosystem establishment of associations that represent, just like EFET, the bulk of the industry, in Europe. And Brussels as a town of legislation, needs industry representation. So just like EFET has 100 members, GIE, Roxana will tell us how many members they have, but it's certainly very many. But Roxana, I'd like to invite you now to have your intervention and tell us a little bit about how you see the role of infrastructure, how it's actually developed in Europe, what GIE has done, particularly in terms of sustainability issues, decarbonization issues, and what perhaps, experiences of you as an association, working in this sphere, working closely with the legislators at the European level, can offer our Central Asian colleagues as some insights for the future. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Marat, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really sorry I cannot be there with you because, believe it or not, it is a very big honor and unique occasion for us to talk to you, to the Central Asian partners, something that we do not do very often. So I'm very glad to be here with you today. And thank you very much, Marat, dear friend, for inviting us to this discussion. So indeed, who are we really? For those of you who do not know us, we are the Gas Infrastructure Association in Europe that represents around 70 companies from 26 European countries. And our members operate Europe's pipelines, underground gas storage, and LNG terminals. Now, I'm going to take you on a journey on what we actually did last winter. So how did we navigate throughout the energy crisis? And where are we going now? because there is no room for complacency. We need to move on and deliver the Repower EU ambitions that were put forward by the European Commission. Now, it is no exaggeration to say that the gas infrastructure was key to securing Europe's gas supplies last winter. And it will continue to do so, because on one hand, industry, business models, and regulation proved to be fit for purpose to respond to the biggest disruption we had in the energy system since the Second World War. On the other hand, as gas infrastructure operators, we made massive efforts to help save Europe from what could have been an awful winter. Hundreds of gigawatts were rerouted from the traditional import and transport routes. EU's gas stocks were filled at almost full capacity, much earlier and well above EU's targets. And to diversify gas supplies, new LNG regas capacities were developed in no time at places where they can serve the wider EU market. Last year, for example, our LNG terminals regasified 75% more gas than the previous year. And we built new pipeline interconnectors to allow these new gas supplies to reach all landlocked countries and markets with no import terminals. At GIE, as we are sitting in Brussels, we have sought to become the go-to destination for global energy market players when it comes to market transparency. And I am inviting you today to check our ALSI and AGSI platforms that provide transparency for the LNG market and underground storage market, because now they are covering 100% of European infrastructures. Now, that was about last winter, but as I mentioned, there is no room for complacency, because the next mission we are going to have is to deliver the energy transition. We are committed to delivering the Repower EU targets, aiming for 10 million tons of green hydrogen to be produced in the EU by 2030, and for another 10 million tons to be imported. Now, these are not any kind of novels or dreamy scenarios, because let me tell you something, the first projects are already emerging. For example, last month in Austria, the first pure underground hydrogen storage in the world in a porous reservoir was inaugurated. And more than 40 projects are on the way in the EU. Also, network operators have launched 300 projects to convert gas pipelines into hydrogen pipelines. For instance, maybe I would refer here in our neighborhood, in the Netherlands, in Germany and France. It's done successfully and at full scale. And it shows how really the future industrial hydrogen corridors can look. This retrofit is also cost effective because it costs about 3 times less than laying a new pipeline. Our LNG terminals will be also the gateway to Europe for those 10 million tons of hydrogen. They can come in derivative forms, such as synthetic methane, ammonia, LOHC, or possibly as liquid hydrogen. And that will all depend on the technologies that will be chosen to ensure the global hydrogen trade in the future. And this is, again, not something that we dream of. This is something that we do, because around 20 projects are currently on their way. And you can check out all these projects on the website of the European Hydrogen Infrastructure Map that we've developed together with other stakeholders that are also based in Brussels and are representing the European infrastructure, be it TSOs, DSOs, and so on. That was on hydrogen. But we are also committed to transporting 35 billion cubic meters by 2030 to wherever they will be needed of biogas, yet another REPowerEU ambition. And already today, some GIE members are the front runners of biomethane. For example, have a look at Denmark, because biomethane accounted for 40% in their annual gas consumption. But they don't stop here because they aim for 100% of biomethane before 2030. Now, to sum up, I can confess that the past year and a half has truly been a fiery, bumpy ride for the gas infrastructure in Europe. So what lessons can we take away from that? And maybe what can we share with our Central Asian partners? First of all, energy security and decarbonization are strongly intertwined. As it decarbonizes and reaches its climate ambitions, Europe needs to ensure a stable and reliable energy supply. At the same time, foster all renewables inside and outside Europe. We are preparing for that. Secondly, energy availability and affordability are not for granted. It is a big victory to have those, but making it also sustainable is the ultimate challenge. As gas infrastructure operators, we will stand as a Lipchin in Europe's quest for a sustainable and secure energy future, and we will deliver the following two key things. First, a well-interconnected and integrated EU gas market to ensure security of supply through a high diversity of energy carriers, origins, and routes. And I was very glad to hear the previous interventions from the Central Asian countries that can also, indeed, as it is already the case, prioritize the development of a robust gas infrastructure network to enhance that energy security. But that includes investing in pipeline infrastructure, in storage facilities and LNG terminals to secure diverse and flexible energy supply. And secondly, the energy transition with hydrogen, biomethane, and other clean gases. And in such case, Central Asian countries could also consider the role of natural gas as a transitional fuel in their own energy transition. Because by investing in gas infrastructure, let me remind you, this does not provide any lock-in effect, because the gas infrastructure can reduce the reliance on more carbon-intensive fuels, while we are also going to integrate and expand our renewable energy sources through hydrogen, biomethane, synthetic methane, and so on. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you, Marat, really for a well-organized discussion from which I personally learned so much, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Fantastic, Roxana, really fantastic intervention. Great to actually the last couple of messages you left us with, I think were very important. And I see Jan Haizmann sort of reminding me of one visit we had to Abu Dhabi, where I believe Jan, what was the main logo in that conference, World Utilities Congress there in the spring? No transition without transmission. No transition without transmission. Roxana, if you pick that one up.
I totally agree. And Marat, I have to share something with you. And I hope I still have 1 minute for that, because you now triggered me with this energy transition without transmission, meaning that there is no energy transition without transmission. I think something else that also together with the Central Asian countries, we can learn from, and in Europe, we are not there yet, but we are going to do our best, is actually something that is related to transmission, because for the energy transition, we need to maximize the synergies with all energy carriers and support an integrated planning with concrete actions. Because in the future, the electricity, methane, and hydrogen markets will be naturally interlinked and interdependent. And what we see today in Brussels is that we still continue to think in silos. So transmission immediately sent me to think about electricity lines, which are of course a huge priority for Europe in order to deploy those renewable energies. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that we are all in this together, electricity, methane, and hydrogen, because we are dependent and we are going to need each other to go through the energy transition and together arrive in 2050 by having delivered all these targets that are put forward by our European institutions.
Roxana, thanks very much. And just before we go to the coffee break, everybody, just one thought also from Pierre's intervention earlier from Wind Europe, when he actually said that Central Asia has an opportunity to actually jump ahead of Europe in certain areas. And this is in fact why we invite people like Pierre and Roxana to actually share the European experience and share some of the lessons that can be drawn, some of the difficult lessons that can be drawn in Europe. So Central Asia has an opportunity to actually supersede Europe in certain areas of new energy, alternative energy sort of development. So I think that's a key message to also take away. Although of course one has to discuss the the substance of some of that European experience. Okay, everybody. So I think we've had a really great panel. If there's any burning questions, we can happily take them. Otherwise, I suggest we go to have our coffee break for around 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back here for the final panel and then the summary of the conference proceedings sort of in the one shot, and we'll finish before 6 o'clock. So thank you very much to all our fantastic panelists joining online. Roxanne, Pierre-Paul, Mr. Azimov in Dushanbe, and of course our wonderful panelists in person, Igor Zgurov from Yugneftegaz, Vema Carbon, Dr. Jan Haizmann. Thank you very much, and let's now enjoy a nice coffee break, everybody. Thank you.